Well, good evening and welcome to the Saturday edition of Poland Daily. I'm Conrad Gorlinski. Let's see what's in the news this evening. Well, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is the largest in Europe. Yesterday, around 4 p.m., unknown perpetrators kidnapped its director, Igor Murashov. His car was stopped, he was taken by force and blindfolded, and then taken away in an unknown direction. So far, nothing more is known about his fate. Murashov is responsible for the nuclear and radiological safety of the Zaporizhia power plant. At the same time, Russia has just purchased potassium iodide for almost 5 million rubles. The Kremlin has announced a quick tender for this purchase. Also, yesterday, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, officially applied for accelerated membership to NATO. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has made no affirmative statements and only outlined possible next steps. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, assured that Kiev would sit down to peace talks with Moscow only if Vladimir Putin is no longer in the Kremlin. He also recalled that Ukraine, through its actions, has been an informal NATO member since the beginning of the war.
Ми де-факто союзники.
We are de facto allies. This has already been achieved. We are de facto members of NATO. We have de facto proven compliance with NATO standards. And the standards are real for Ukraine, real on the battlefield and in all aspects of our cooperation. We trust each other, help each other, and defend ourselves. This alliance is already underway.
De facto.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg reminded that Ukraine, as a sovereign state, can decide its future on its own.
NATO allies, when they met at the NATO summit in Madrid, stated also very clearly that we support Ukraine's right to choose its own path, to decide what kind of security arrangements it wants to be part of. Then a decision on membership, of course, has to be taken by all 30 allies, and we take these decisions by consensus.
According to experts, this step made by Volodymyr Zelensky is a natural consequence of Vladimir Putin's criminal activities. This type of decision, first of all, is a testament of the maturity of Ukraine's political elite. But also, certainly, this decision was pre-consulted with NATO structures. Ukrainians are in support of their president and are in favor of joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Anyway, that's good, because it proves first that the Supreme Commander understands on which side of the border our future lies. Second, it's better to go towards a civilized world. If that at least gives us more weapons and political support, why not? It's long overdue. President Poroshenko also mentioned it when he was president. The NATO path has been approved by Parliament and the Constitution. So I'm just happy about it, and I hope that this problem will be resolved soon. I think this is an opportunity for Ukraine in terms of weapons, defense, and hope for the future. That's what I think. I think that if my family is safe thanks to this, my country will be safe, and I'll be able to travel safely to my relatives in the Zaporizhia region, and NATO will protect us in this way. Then yes, but I'm not sure what the consequences will be. The most important thing is not peace, but Ukraine's victory. Then I'll be able to see my relatives. U.S. President Joe Biden has assured that the Western world will never recognize the pseudo-referenda that the Russians held in eastern Ukraine, and promised further support for Kiev.
We're going to continue to provide military equipment so that Ukraine can defend itself and its territory and its freedom, including additional resources that the Congress is going to give me today of $13 billion more to help the Ukrainians defend themselves and fight back. And we're fully prepared to defend. I want to say this again. America is fully prepared with our NATO allies to defend every single inch of NATO territory.
Disturbing news, however, is coming from Enerhodar. According to the head of Energoatom, Petro Kotin, the Russians kidnapped the general director of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, Igor Murashov. The vehicle of the director general of the nuclear power plant was stopped. He was taken out of the car, and with his eyes blindfolded, he was driven to an unknown direction. For the time being, there's no information on his fate. Meanwhile, the Russian mobilization is on its way to the front. The North Atlantic Pact has recently expanded to include Finland and Sweden. In order for Ukraine to join the alliance, the consent of all 30 member states is required. The Baltic states have already expressed their readiness to support such a solution. In turn, today, the Ukrainian army began to enter Liman on the Donetsk Oblast. Liman is a city that was occupied by the Russians. And Radosław Sikorski thought of himself as a master of diplomacy, and he ended up a pawn in Putin's propaganda game. This is the whole truth about the leadership of the civic platform. This is how Prime Minister Morawiecki summed up Sikorski's famous Twitter post about the Nord Stream sabotage. On Friday, during a session of the UN Security Council, a symbolic scene took place. Russia's representative used Sikorski's tweet to attack the West. According to Prime Minister Morawiecki, this is the end of the myth of Mr. Sikorski being a seasoned diplomat, but above all, a memento for the total model of how the Polish opposition does politics. Meanwhile, gas is flowing into Poland through the Baltic pipe, although for the next 2 months, the system will operate with limited capacity.
Yesterday, at a UN Security Council assembly, a Russian diplomat blamed the United States for damaging the Nord Stream pipelines. Another Russian manipulation would not come as a surprise to anyone, if not for the fact that the diplomat referred to the entry of a Polish politician.
Immediately after the incidents, the former Minister of Defense and Foreign Affairs of Poland, Radek Sikorski, posted a photo of the leak site on Twitter and openly thanked the United States for this sabotage. He wrote, "Thank you, USA." Here is a photo of that tweet.
Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki commented on social media about what happened during the meeting. Radosław Sikorski thought of himself as a master of diplomacy, and he ended up a pawn in Putin's propaganda game. This is the whole truth about the leadership of the civic platform. During today's conference, the politicians of Solidarity Poland demanded that strict consequences be drawn against the politician of the civic platform. As Solidarity Poland, we expect that Donald Tusk will throw out Radosław Sikorski immediately. The end of this man's career has already come. I cannot imagine that this man would ever be on any list again. Radosław Sikorski's entry became a media sensation on the day of the symbolic opening of the Baltic pipe, through which gas imports began this morning. For the first 2 months, the gas pipeline is to operate at reduced capacity. According to the president of Gas System, the gas flow should be at the level of 200,000 cubic meters per hour. As promised over 6 years ago, we have kept our word. Today, at 6:10 a.m., gas transmission via the Baltic pipe has started to Poland. The daily nomination as of October 1st, 2022, is 62.4 million kilowatt hours per day. Good morning. Today is that historic day. Gas transmission via Baltic pipe gas pipeline begins. We are putting an end to Russian domination in this part of Europe, as far as we can talk about energy infrastructure, both transport and gas. Poland is not the only country that has been forced to become independent from supplies of Russian fuel. A gas connection between Bulgaria and Greece has been opened today. On April 27th, Gazprom suspended gas supplies to Bulgaria after the Bulgarian government refused to pay Russia for gas in rubles.
The project of the gas interconnector between Bulgaria and Greece has been on the table since over 10 years. Bulgaria used to receive 80% of its gas from Russia. That was before Russia decided to launch an atrocious war against Ukraine and an energy war against Europe. This pipeline is a game changer.
Thanks to the new connection, Bulgaria will be able to receive 1 billion cubic meters of gas from Azerbaijan annually, which is of the domestic demand for this raw material.
And Cubans hit the streets for a second late night yesterday to protest continued blackouts across several neighborhoods in Havana, marking some of the largest rallies in the capital since the widespread anti-government demonstrations last July. Well, at least one of the protests in the western Havana neighborhood of Playa swelled in size to several hundred people who chanted "Turn on the lights," as well as anti-government slogans disparaging Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel. At one point, the group began to chant for freedom as it walked through a dark, densely populated neighborhood without electricity since Tuesday. Hurricane Ian, which plowed through western Cuba early this week, knocked out power to the entire country of 11 million. By midday, electricity had been restored to about half of the capital of Havana, officials said. But those still in the dark had grown increasingly anxious. "It's like being in hell," said Carlos Felipe Garcia, who marched shirtless and covered in sweat. "That's why we're out on the street, and we'll keep coming out." Internet communications in Havana appeared to collapse again for the second night on Friday as protests flared, making mobile calls and messaging impossible. As the protesters marched in Playa, some of the housing and apartment blocks were suddenly illuminated by returning electricity. The problem is that when people protest, yes, the authorities put on the lights. Look, they're turning them on here. But our children's food is already rotted, and they don't have anything to eat. They don't have any hot water. They have nothing. Officials on Friday said they hope to have the lights back on across the majority of Havana by the end of the weekend. Outside Havana, however, vast swaths of the island are still in the dark as work crews continue to repair electric poles and lines and remove trees from roadways. And finally, Elon Musk, founder and CEO of Tesla, has unveiled a prototype of the latest humanoid robot. Optimus, as the robot's called, is expected to perform various hazardous jobs in factories. And in future, it's expected to serve as a domestic helper. Musk has announced that it'll be the first such robot to be mass-produced.
Yesterday, Elon Musk showcased his humanoid robot, Optimus, at the electric vehicle maker's AI Day event.
Our goal is to make a useful humanoid robot as quickly as possible. And we've also designed it using the same discipline that we use in designing the car, which is to design it for manufacturing such that it's possible to make the robot in high volume at low cost with high reliability. So, now there's still a lot of work to be done to refine Optimus and improve it. Obviously, this is just Optimus version 1.
Tesla's live demonstration record is mixed. Launches typically draw cheers. But in 2019, when Musk had an employee hurl a steel ball at the armored window of a new electric pickup truck, the glass cracked. The key test for the robot is whether it can handle unexpected situations.
They're missing a brain. They don't have the intelligence to navigate the world by themselves. And they're also very expensive and made in low volume. Whereas Optimus is designed to be an extremely capable robot, but made in very high volume, probably ultimately millions of units, and it is expected to cost much less than a car.
I'll just bring it directly to the right here.
I would say probably less than $20,000 would be my guess.
Initially, Optimus would perform boring or dangerous jobs, including moving parts around Tesla factories or attaching a bolt to a car with a wrench, according to Musk. Musk has said that in the future, robots could be used in homes, making dinners, mowing the lawn, and caring for the elderly, and even becoming a buddy for humans. Musk announced Tesla's plan for humanoid robots at its AI Day in August last year and delayed this year's event from August to have its robot prototype working, with a plan to start production possibly next year.
Well, as usual, thanks very much for joining us this evening. Please stay with us for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and other programs. But from me, it's have a wonderful Saturday night.